Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for participating in Colombia's public policy on seas and oceans and its implementation in several sectors today. On behalf of the Colombian Embassy, I would like to recognize our charge d'affaires, Mr. Manuel Solano, Head of Participation Management Center, Mr. Kwon Young-dae, commissioners from different countries, our guest speakers, experts, Korean government officials, and academic affiliates. Now, please join me in welcoming Colombia's Charge d'Affaires and Commissioner for Expo Yosu 2012 Korea, Mr. Manuel Solano.
It's an honor for me to address the letter written by His Excellency Jaime Cabal, who came on stage today with us. He sent this message for you. Remarks by the Ambassador Jaime Cabal San Clemente upon the opening of the seminar on Colombia's public policy on seas, oceans, and its implementation in some sectors. Distinguished guests and representatives, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start these remarks by expressing, on behalf of the government of Colombia, and in particular on behalf of Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos, my gratitude to all of you for being present here today. This event, which has been organized by the Embassy of Colombia in the Republic of Korea, is honored to count on the participation of important representatives of public institutions in Colombia, such as the Ministry of the Environment and Sustainable Development, INVEMAR, COTECMAR, and BioInnova. We equally welcome Mr. Kwon Young, who is here on behalf of the Commissioner of the Jesu Expo, Mr. Jung Hee Lee, and each of our panelists. Thank you for joining us today. Leading this important event has been a part of my diplomatic mission. Unfortunately, I could not attend today's program due to issues concerning flight connection on the way back to Seoul. However, upon my return, I look forward to learning about the new discoveries, ideas, and opportunities that the Yosu Expo and this seminar in particular will have generated with regard to the topic of oceans and seas. It's a great honor for Colombia that this seminar has an audience and widely recognized professionals representative of over 50 different countries. Indeed, the topic sustainability and biodiversity regarding seas and coasts is of special relevance to Colombia for a number of reasons. Please allow me to share some of them with you. First, as one of the 12 best endowed countries of the world in terms of biodiversity, with only 0.7% of the Earth's surface, Colombia is a home to over 40% of the world's fauna and flora species. We are also the only country in South America with coasts both on Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. Colombia's coasts and seas host 6 of the most important marine and coastal ecosystems. For this reason, we feel it's our responsibility to propose ideas for the world in much more harmony with our no renewable resources. We face this responsibility by designing coherent public policy regarding protection of biodiversity and promoting the participation of the private sector in this process, as well as the implementation. The subject matter of today's seminar have also been promoted by Colombia in several other international scenarios. Indeed, at the last Rio +20 United Nations Conference on Sustainable and Development of Colombia played a leading role in managing to get the support to start out a discussion process, hopefully leading to the adoption of some Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, among which may be food security, water, energy, sustainable cities, clean cities, and oceans. We hope to keep benefit from this collective knowledge building platform. Today, we'll share our ideas and knowledge and experience, but no doubt we certainly profit from your sound expertise, all thoughtful comments. Once again, thank you for all of you coming today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Solano. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Kwon Young-dae, Head of the Participation Management Center for Expo 2012 Yosu, Korea, for his opening remarks.
Mr. Minister Solano and distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So Commissioner General Lee Juni, he attended the FAO's special day right now, so he cannot attend this seminar. So on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to congratulate you, Minister, on holding these wonderful events. Under the theme of living ocean and coast, the Yosu Expo aims to highlight the urgency of the marine environmental challenges facing our global community, such as climate change and environmental destruction and loss of biodiversity. These environmental problems requires urgent joint international efforts. Even in Colombia, I think the environmental challenges such as soil erosion, deforestation, and endangered species continue to be a source of great concern. So, in response to this, the Colombia government has undertaken several measures. Chief among these is the establishment of 10 UNESCO World Heritage Sites and 37 natural parks, which highlights Colombia's commitment to environmental preservation. So I think in this regard, this seminar is very special and meaningful, that the Colombia shares their environmental national policy and their preservation and protection and recovery on this matter. So, since the establishment of diplomatic ties between Colombia and Korea in 1962, our bilateral relations have been developing steadily in various areas based on friendship and trust accumulated during the Korean War. So I am confident that Colombia's contributions to Yosu Expo will further strengthen our two countries' friendly relationship and deepen the mutual understanding between our two peoples. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Kwon Young-dae. Before we officially begin the conferences, I would like to take a moment to share the format of the event. Each conference, 35 minutes long, will be led by speakers from Colombia. Afterwards, experts in respective fields will provide additional commentaries regarding the conference for 10 minutes. Please write down any questions regarding the particular conference, and we'll have someone come around at the end of each conference to collect your questions. After all of the conferences have finished, we will host a question and answer session in which the speakers and experts will help answer the accumulated questions. With that, I would like to invite Mrs. Elizabeth Taylor J., who is the Director of Marine and Coastal Affairs and Water Resources at the Colombian Ministry for the Environment and Sustainable Development. Mrs. Taylor will inform us about the topic of sustainable seas and coasts, challenges for Colombia.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today. I would like to say thanks to the Embassy of Colombia for organizing this event, and thanks also to the people from Korea, from Yeosu, for their hospitality and for assembling this very important worldwide event. I would like to share with you all today some of the issues and the challenges also that we have in Colombia to implement integrated coastal zone management. I'm going to move through these 6 main points, put you into context of our national legislations, where is Colombia located, move into the marine and coastal national policy, history, and some of the progress also of the implementation of this policy, and dig into 2 case studies that I think it's important to exalt, and looking on future planning, mainly in 2 main aspects. Some of the lessons that we have learned in integrated coastal zone management and challenges also that our country have. Colombia is located in the northwest corner of South America. It's bordered with Central America. It has a total surface area of 2,070,000 square kilometers, of which 928,000 are marine area. 45% of the surface of the country is marine area. It has a coastline length of 2,900 kilometers, and our marine territory have coast in both the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean, in the Atlantic with the Caribbean Sea. It have great typical tropical marine and coastal ecosystem. It's of great diversity, from mangrove, beaches, coral reefs, seamounts, other oceanic features that make it a real rich, that give it a really rich assets in marine environment. So what have happened really in our legal framework. We had a code for natural resources and environmental management since 1974. It were basically our Bible in environmental management. But in 1991, we had a new constitution that was enacted by the people from the country and the constituents, which are considered in many scenarios as a very environmentalist constitution, because it have so many topics that include environmental awareness, both at social and in all different type of dimensions in whatever we have in the country. From then, we had Congress law in 1999 that established the Ministry of the Environment and reorganized the public sector, which is in charge of the management of the environment and the conservation also of renewable resources, and arrange a natural environmental system for the country. During the past 10 years, we had some internal changes in structure of the Ministry of the Environment. We had a Ministry of the Environment that were merged at some point with housing and territorial ordering. And then last year we had these two ministries separated, and now we have, through this law 1444, we have a Ministry of the Environment and Sustainable Development at this moment. In marine issues, it was fundamental also that in the National Development Plan that was approved last year, there are two key articles that grant special protection to coral reefs and mangroves and also seagrass beds, and forbid in the case of mangroves and coral reefs totally the oil exploration and exploitation. At the same time, in that law that approved the National Development Plan, the Marine Authority at the regional or at the local level were expanded, and today the different, I'm going to show you a bit the scheme just in a moment. But the idea is that the coastal regional autonomous environmental authorities now has jurisdiction on sea. Our national environmental system, it's composed of the Ministry of the Environment, which led the national policies for environment. We have 5 research institutes, of which one of these institutes are for marine research and monitoring, and national park systems that have both terrestrial and marine parks. We have also a national agency for environmental licensing, where the large infrastructure projects and projects that could at some point generate environmental impacts, they are required to have an environmental license. Also, the country is divided into regional autonomous corporations. We have 33 of these, 7 of which are for sustainable development and are located in the key bio regions of the country. And we have also some environmental authorities for the megacities, the largest cities in the country, which are 6, and other public institutions such as the departments, municipalities, they have also some environmental functions. The second topic is about our marine and coastal management policy. We have after our new constitution and our law of the environment in 1996, we had our first policy for coastal zones, which between 1998 and 2000 we developed a much more robust policy, which include also oceanic and island ecosystems, and that were converted into a legal binding instrument, which is encompassed in our country, that state also budgets and how this policy could be implemented in the country. This policy, mainly the purpose of this policy is to promote sustainable development of oceanic and coastal zones, and that allows an integrated management that contribute at the same time with the quality of life of the Colombian population, a harmonic development of the productive activities, and conservation and preservation of coastal and marine environments and natural resources, and have mainly 4 key objectives, which are the first is to include marine and coastal ecosystems within the national territorial planning. Before that, I mean, we had territorial planning that solely include the terrestrial areas, but now since 2000, marine areas are gradually being incorporated into the territorial planning. And recognizing also that the marine territory is an integrated part of the country, and to ensure also that we can create an equilibrium between the activities that are and uses that are posed on the marine areas with sustainability. A second objective also that strive for ensure that productive activities have proper guidelines that will allow the reduction of impacts in the implementations of those activities in the marine and coastal zones. A third objective that is to adopt conservation, rehabilitation, restoration measures in marine and coastal environment to preserve biological diversity, but also guarantee long-term provision of goods and services from the environment. And the fourth objective is to provide a healthy marine and coastal zone that contribute at the same time with the quality of life of the population. So which are the main progresses that we have in these 4 key objectives? We have on both coasts of the country, in the Caribbean insular areas, as we have the model of sea flower, which is a biosphere reserve, and I'm going to refer in more depth in the case study about sea flower. We have also on the continental insular areas, other marine protected areas, and also integrated management district, such as Cispata, which is the other case study that I'm going to treat today. And on the Caribbean continental coast areas, we have many different initiatives that are going on, especially to establish coastal environmental units in these areas. On the Pacific continental coastal areas also, we have established integrated coastal management committees, especially for the Valle del Cauca departments, which include a large area, Malaga complex, which part of that also it's now a national park, and Buenaventura, which is one of the largest, port that we have on the Pacific coast of the country. And Pacific insular oceanic areas, which the main example is the expansion of the Malpelo Flora and Fauna Sanctuary, which were declared in the past years also as a World Heritage Site, Natural Heritage Site. The second objective that refer to environmental guidelines for productive activities, we have like three main, I would say, achievements. Guidelines for marine seismic activities for the mine and energy sector. We have also a physical and environmental hardening plan for the ports and transportation sector, including ports expansion, and the inclusion of environmental variables for the development of tourism and recreation sector, including beach classification and water quality standards. The third objective, which refer to conservation and rehabilitation of both ecosystems and biodiversity. We have some species-based programs and action plans oriented to conserve, rehabilitate, restore marine mammals, queen conch, which is a conch that is typical in the Caribbean. This is a mollusk. Exotic species, and one of our great challenge today is on the Caribbean side. It's to control the massive invasion of lionfish, which is a fish that almost took over the Caribbean Sea. Migratory species, mammals, sea turtles, and other key species, and sea turtle. And on the ecosystem-based programs, we have ecosystem restoration programs, coral reef conservation, which are in development at this moment, a program for coastal erosion, and mangroves hardening plan. On the fourth objective, on healthy marine and coastal zones to improve population quality of life, we have the development of a land and marine-based pollution source national program, which is implemented through the entire country, and the establishment of a national surveillance network for the conservation and protection of marine and coastal water quality, REDCAM, of which Captain Arias will refer more in his presentation. So let us move to the two case studies. We have the sea flower. The sea flower, it's a biosphere reserve. It's a biosphere reserve with 180,000 square kilometers. It's the Caribbean insular areas of Colombia, and it have very large marine area, very tiny islands. 57 square kilometers are the sum of all the emerged island and keys surfaces. This area is administered environmentally by Coralina, which is the regional autonomous corporation, and the inhabited islands, which are 3, has around 86,000 people. But let us refer within this biosphere reserve to the sea flower marine protected area, which is a marine protected area that was declared by the Ministry of the Environment in the year 2005 as a result of a participatory process that were led at the local level by Coralina, and established this very large area as marine protected area, 65,000 square kilometers, which is being considered the largest in the Caribbean at this moment and one of the largest in the world. It has 3 different administrative sections, where the main islands are San Andres and the Southern Keys, Providence, Old Providence, and deep water ecosystems, and 3 of the banks and keys and atolls at the north part of the archipelago. The Seaflower MPA have a large zoning scheme which have 5 different zoning types, no entry, no take zones, but it have also special areas for artisanal fishing, and some special use areas where the ports and marinas, and general use where a very diverse array of activities can occur, but at the same time these activities have to be of low impact to ensure the conservation of ecosystems and the biodiversity within the marine protected area. This MPA seeks for biodiversity conservation, and also it fosters socioeconomic goals. It was a very participatory process, and some of the progresses there are sustainable financial mechanisms in development at this moment. Coralina, it's working through some funds from the Global Environment Facility to establish innovative financial mechanisms. There are some sustainable alternative livelihood projects also in implementation, because it's clear that it's impossible to conserve natural resources if we don't implement actions toward reducing poverty, economic growth for the communities that depends on these resources for their survival. And just to inspire you all, this is an underwater photograph that one of the fishers took, and that's part of one of the alternative livelihood programs that are in place at this moment, to provide the fishers with some alternatives, especially during closed seasons, so they can have also an alternative economic activity at the same time, sometimes when they have their fishing as main activity. Scientific and community-based monitoring also are in place, and ecosystems and species restoration program. This is a beach dune restoration program that is in place at this moment, and also there is a program to restore the stock of queen conch in the archipelago. The second case is the Cispata Integrated Management District. This is an initiative also that that were worked through with the community, and it were worked also by one of these regional autonomous corporations, which is the CBS. It's the Corporation for the Sinoe Valley. And in 2006, they established, by accord from the board of directors, this area. It's a mangrove area, which also it's in the delta of the Sinoe River. They have a zoning scheme that were established also, and they have 5 different zone types: preservation, production, sustainable production and use, protection, and recovery. As I said before, they had community participation, both for the diagnosis, developing management scenarios, research and monitoring. Also, they have some programs that are in implementation for ecosystem restoration and species recovery. And they have productive projects also in implementation, including ecotourism activities. They have a management scheme also that they establish with strategic line of actions, and they have as basic management tools environmental research and monitoring, information and outreach, institutional strengthening of community-based organizations, and environmental education and community participation. So let us move into the future planning, what are going on now and what have us really busy at this moment. We are supporting at the local level. The Ministry of the Environment is supporting at the local level. We have also support from INVEMAR to develop integrated coastal zone management plan for each of the environmental authorities in both the Caribbean and also the Pacific coast of the country. On the other side, we have a goal, at least for the next, for this development plan, to ensure by 2014 the protection of 10% of the marine environment in our country. So they are on the way, the establishment of a subsystem of marine protected areas. This is a process that is being led by INVEMAR, and they have developed a gap analysis for each of the coasts, and they are working very specifically on some of these key areas to make sure that we can progress in the declaration of these new marine protected areas. So, which are the lessons that we have learned in this maybe last 15 years of implementation of this public policy? We think that integrated coastal zone management takes place at the local level. In that sense, we think that institutional capacity must be developed at that level also to ensure that national management goal can be achieved. We think that financial sustainability is key for long-term successful integrated coastal zone management. And we believe that countries should invest strong effort in developing robust financial mechanisms. We think also that management actions and strategies have to necessarily be developed with community participation to ensure appropriate stakeholder engagement and foster co-management. Bottom-up planning, it's something different from in the past. It was top-down, but now we are really working at the local level. Bottom-up planning process, we think that it paves the way for effective implementation. Adaptive ecosystem-based approach and social development must be factored into integrated coastal zone management to ensure long-term sustainable development. And one of the great lessons that we have learned also is that scientific knowledge is as important as traditional knowledge, and these must be properly combined to ensure effective integrated coastal zone management planning and implementation. Integrated coastal zone management, it doesn't have a magical formula. It must be site-specific and sufficiently creative to ensure that environmental, social, and economic considerations are fully incorporated. And which are the great challenge? Well, to develop these integrated coastal zone management plans for 100% of Colombian coast. We know that this is a great challenge because there are so many stakeholders, there are so many interests from the different sectors, and also there's such a diverse array of communities also in these different areas. So that's a great challenge for us. To incorporate environmental considerations into sectorial planning. For example, the oil industry is one of these industries that are progressing very rapidly in our country. So the idea is for us to make sure that these different sectors incorporate environmental considerations and respect for the environment in the areas where there are vulnerable ecosystems and resources. Develop coherent sustainable fisheries management plans also, which it's a great challenge also. We have a lot of problem with illegal fishing, and it's not only done by maybe nationals, but at the same time by international boats, because, for example, in the Caribbean, we have border with six different countries. Advance into marine spatial planning to reduce the impact of invasive species on marine and coastal biodiversity. Improve enforcement, capacity, and interinstitutional coordination. Improve capacity building at the local level through regional environmental authorities. And I think what we are doing in our very small piece of ocean of the world is trying to strive for coast and ocean sustainability, using this very important message of think globally and act locally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator for the conference, Ms. Maria Claudia Diaz Granados, the Director of Marine Conservation Program in Colombia. I would like to also introduce our first expert, Mr. Omar Reynoso, from the Ministry for the Environment and Natural Resources of the Dominican Republic.
Hello. I just gonna highlight just a few things that was going on between Colombia and Dominican Republic regarding to the marine protected area. In 2010, we hosted the Training for Trainers course, and we received people from Colombia, specifically from Seaflower, Ana Maria, and Oscar. And Seaflower, as the largest protected area, is like an example for us. We share experience with the stakeholders, and it was really good experience with zoning and marine management. After that, we received the training for the coral reef restoration from Alexander. Yeah, she was Angela. And as part of that, the Dominican Republic is implementing the coral reef restoration in one of the degraded coastal zones. And one other thing that we are implementing is as part of the Caribbean challenges, we try to interchange some experience between the ranger from Colombia and ranger from the Dominican Republic. And all of that thing is going through the Campan network, which is one of the most important networks for the protected area in the region. Colombia and Dominican Republic as part of that. And I just want to point that out that we also hosting the training for trainers course next year too. So hope to see you there. Okay, thanks.
Reynoso for your comments. And if everyone wants to make an additional question, you have these papers on your table. You can write it down, and after that, you pass that to me, so we can make the question directly to the presenter. Thank you very much, and we can continue with our program.
Thank you, Mr. Reynoso. With that, I would like to welcome Captain Francisco Armando Arias Isaza, the General Director of the Colombian Institute of Marine and Coast Research in Benmar, to lead our next conference titled Sustainable Seas and Coasts, Challenges for Colombia.
First of all, I would like to thank the presence of Andrew Snowell, who is representing the University of Virginia, Chief Executive Officer of the USA Pavilion. And he will join us and will be commenting on Captain Arias' presentation.
Good morning to everybody. First, please forgive my poor English. I try to do my best. And second, thank you to the Embassy of Colombia for hosting his part in the Expo with such a great success. I believe it was a very important effort for the country. I would like to present my respect to the Ministry, towards the other part of the delegation present here in this meeting. We feel very proud of what you've done here. And third, thank you to everybody for attending these conferences. And I hope that we can give you a rough idea of the things we're conducting in our country to protect our environment, our marine environment, and the richness that we believe it belongs not only to us, the Colombians, but to everybody as part of a common world. And we've taken very seriously this responsibility. As you've heard from our ministry and Elizabeth, Colombia has been playing a leading role in all the international community towards giving the importance of the marine environment and the protection of its resources, and especially strengthening relationship with other countries in order to have good results on these ideas and in this leadership. Well, I will begin saying that I am part of the Ministry of Environment. The Ministry of Environment is a very interesting institution in Colombia. It was created shortly before the Rio Convention, early 90s, and it responds very interesting to the things that were established in that international meeting. This will be my agenda. I will try to go through these points. And first, I will begin talking about INVEMAR. As Elizabeth explained, INVEMAR is one of the 5 research institutes that were established in the environmental system to support the making of decisions of the officials within the ministry. And Law 99 of 1993 was a result of the compromise of Colombia in the Rio meeting. It was not the first institutional arrangement that we had in our country. Before that, we have had a very important institution called the INDRENA, which was acting as the administrator of the marine, terrestrial, and in general living resources of the country. By that time, that was part of the Ministry of Agriculture, and after Rio, the country decided to have a whole ministry dedicated to conservation and the wise administration of our natural resources. INDEMAR was then established following the promulgation of the law, and our responsibility is devoted to marine issues. I'd like to present what the environmental system of Colombia is, and I try to make this diagram in which we have the major constituents of the environmental system. We have at the top what we call the National Environmental Council, which is a consulting establishment in where we have sitting all the most important institutions, both official and civil society institutions. They are advisors to the ministry in order to have a sound and a coherent policy, environmental policy in the country. And then we have what we call the institutional arrangement, where we have the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development, which is responsible of the making the national policy. We have in the regions the Corporaciones Autónomas Regionales, the regional autonomous environmental corporations, which is a very interesting institutional system in where we have the regions really acting as protagonists of its own future in terms of environment. We have 33 around the country, and in the other hand, we have the research institutes. We have 5 research institutes giving advice both to the ministry or to the Corporaciones Autónomas, supporting their decisions in science. And this is very interesting, as I said, and one of these institutes is INDEMAR, the one devoted to marine issues. INDEMAR is a national institution. We are in charge of making research, basic and applied research, and more of that, which I believe is one of our major challenges, is to translate that information, that data, into action papers, action documents, in the opportunity and in the language that the people that have to make decisions need this information. This has been a major challenge. Scientists feel very proud of their scientific publications. We make a lot of documents that go into the international journals, but most of the time this information is not suitable for the decision of a ministry, of a director in a corporación autónoma regional, or even in the private industry. So a great effort in the institute has been to make this scientific result, which is important, and we keep doing it because that's the major purpose of a scientist, but to translate it into the papers and into the communications and into the advices that, as I said, the ministry or the director in a corporation or a major in a city or a private investor needs in order to have good and sound decisions about the marine environment. We support the socio-economical development of the country. We help not only the Ministry of Environment, but other ministers, Energy Minister, Agriculture Minister, in terms of information, and that's our main purpose of work. We're located in Santa Marta. Our main premises are in Santa Marta, in the Caribbean Sea. This is our actual location. We will be changing our beautiful location because of the port expansion in Santa Marta. This has us very sad, but it's a thing that has to deal with the economic development of the country, and we will have a new site, much better, I believe, and I will show you some pictures of what's being done for our new premises. And we have locations on the Pacific coast, in Buenaventura, in the Caribbean, and at this moment we have projects, research projects in each of the coastal and archipelago provinces, departamentos as we call them, all around our coasts, even international. So it's a national institution. We have at this moment about 250 people working at Ingleman, out of which about 60% are dedicated specifically to scientific research, and the rest is dedicated to the technical support, either all the administrative issues of the institute. And let's think that we have an organization which is, I'm going to go very deeply into this, but just to tell you that we have 5 major research programs. One is the Biodiversity and Marine Ecosystems Program, the program that deals with marine biodiversity, and I will go into detail into this, because I'm focusing the presentation in biodiversity. The second program is the one in charge of the use of marine resources. Then we have the fisheries program, we have the aquaculture program, and the marine bio-prospecting activities. The third program is the environmental quality program, which is focused on the analysis of environmental impacts, both natural and human-made impacts. The geosciences program, focused in the aspects of physics of ocean and effects on all the other activities that we are trying to make research on. And the Marine Coastal Management Program, which is actually the translator of all the basic information that is being produced in the other programs, and the one responsible of making the documents and giving advice in the opportunity and in the language that the decision-making people needs. And then we have some other administrative offices, for instance, the library, the Museum of Marine Natural History, the laboratories, and all the supporting and logistics of the institute. Why we talk about Colombia 50% ocean? Well, Colombia, and Elizabeth just gave us some figures about this. We have a terrestrial extension of about 1.1 million square kilometers. We're the only South American country with both coasts in the Pacific and the Caribbean Sea. And accordingly to our projection of the coast in these marine areas, we have about 1 million square kilometers of marine areas. That's why we are trying to give the message to the Colombian people that Colombia is 50% ocean. We have about 1 million square kilometers on land and about the same on the ocean. We've been a country that has not looked very in its history to its oceans, so we want to give this new perspective of a marine nation, of a marine environment, important nation in terms of its nationality. On continent, we have different ecosystems. Because of our special location in South America, we have both Caribbean sort of environment, we have an Eastern tropical Pacific environment, we have the Andes ranges, which is very complex in our portion of land. In the rest of the South America, the Andes is just one huge mountain range. In Colombia, it opens into 3 ranges, giving the country a very special type of environment. But we have also the presence of the Orinoco system in the east of the country, what we call the Oriental Plains, and also the Amazon tropical forest area. So we have this very complex environmental situation in terms of land. And we believe that also that is happening in our seas. And the only problem is that we haven't looked at it in too much detail. So we believe that we have also the complexity in the continent as it is in the sea. And just to give you an idea of some of the things that we have in terms of ecosystems, let me tell you about that we have the largest mangrove areas in the whole Americas. The mangrove extensions of Colombia are the largest in the Americas, especially in the Pacific coast. In the Caribbean, we have the largest lagoon systems, coastal lagoon systems of the whole Caribbean. We have the only really well-developed upwelling system in the Caribbean. Our coral reefs in the archipelago area are the largest Caribbean reefs in the whole Caribbean. And well, I could go along with a lot of examples of the importance of our oceans and our marine environment. And this is just to give an idea of why we think that Colombia is not only one of the mega biodiversity countries in terms of the continental extension, but also in the marine areas. And this has led us to give to the country this idea of what we call the real map of the environmental system of Colombia, in which we have added the continental part of the country to the marine part of the country in terms of the complexity of ecosystems. And this is what it came about, and it was established a couple of years ago. And we're trying to make this map the map that the children use at the school level, the map that we publish in our documents in terms of giving this important idea of what what we're talking about in terms of the biodiversity and the importance of this characteristic of the country. And I will focus now in marine biodiversity, which is what I wanted to talk about. And some generalities, I believe that most of you are very familiar with this. And of course, the box phrase about Earth shouldn't be called the Earth planet, but the water planet. And of course, the ocean is the major feature of our planet. And the content of water that we have in it, about 71% of the planet, it's actually oceans. And we have the origin of life undoubtedly coming from the ocean. We have the earliest fossils coming from our oceans, 3.5 hundreds of millions of years, sorry. The first species known in our Earth, undoubtedly, I insist, come from our ocean, and the richness of this diversity, it's expressed mainly by the results of science. We have about 1,600 new species are reported every year, and most of them come actually from marine research. So we believe that we could have about 230,000, 250,000 species actually that are part of our oceans. And in terms of what we know, and this is a huge challenge not only for Colombia but the human kind, it's the very little knowledge we have about our oceans. We know more about the outer space exploration than what we know about our oceans, which is just in front of us. I try to explain this, trying to bring the example of the experience and the emergency that we had. I mean, we, humankind, in the Gulf of Mexico just a couple of years ago. And if something happens out in the space station, you could have a number of countries ready to launch shuttles to help the people out in the space, and the technology exists. But in this accident that we have, just 5,000 meters deep, there was no technology to solve the problems that were occurring in that point of our coasts. And of course, the very, very difficult and severe damages that were experienced. So this is to show that how the technology about marine issues is very, very young, and we still need to do a lot of things in order really go ahead in this. So if we go and look into this, we think that in terms of the actual capacity that we have to make marine research, in order to go to these important depths and the challenges in doing this, it will take us maybe 200 to 1,000 years to really get all the knowledge that we need or that we should have about our oceans. So this is very interesting in terms of how to focus science efforts in the future, and not only for Colombia, but for everybody. And that's something that I also wanted to give you into these presentations. And also, and connecting this to the problems of technology and what's being done, it's very expensive to make marine research. You need a specialized equipment, specialized people, which you can find very easily. In Colombia, we have major problems in that. For instance, in terms of biodiversity, major life cycle of a species could go in very different ecosystems. And there's been numerous examples of scientists identifying and reporting species that further in time, when they go into more detailed studies, they find out that it's the same species, that it's just holding a moment of its life in a special environment, and it's adapted to that. And when it grows or moves into another environment, it changes its forms, its colors, its features, and so it's really interesting to see how complex it's to make marine research. There are no boundaries at sea, and this is not only for marine sciences, it's also for geopolitics and countries' policies. You cannot put a fence in the water to separate one ecosystem from another. That gives you an idea of the complexity. We have a number of variables. For instance, and I'm taking back the example of space exploration. The problem in outer space it's in general a problem of vacuum to support life, human life. At sea, every 10 meters you have 1 atmosphere of pressure. So every time you go deeper and deeper, you need thicker protection for the people inside the submarines and the exploration devices. So that's a challenge for technology. And you have the sea itself with all the chemical properties which dissolve, damages and destroys anything that goes into the sea. So this is some of the major issues that marine technology has to deal with. And I will stress out that we still have a lot of areas to go into that. We've been doing some collection of data about what is to be a marine mega biodiversity country. We think that this is the rank that the CBD, the Convention on Biological Research, the Convention on Biodiversity has been doing in terms of the number of species of each country. And well, Colombia is one of the largest holder of biodiversity in the world in terms of the terrestrial biodiversity, and we believe that also in terms of marine biota due to the complexity of our marine ecosystems. And one of the lists that we have conducted of the different phyla, the biological groups that actually exist in our areas, and I pointed out the groups in which we have some capacity, and I say some capacity in Colombia in terms of marine research. And you see it's less than 30% the actual capacity for our country in terms of studying this. And I believe that is about the same in many countries. So we have to promote the preparation of marine scientists in order to really study the biodiversity of our oceans. And this is what our country has been doing in the last years, to respond to these challenges? Well, first, we established a national program of marine biodiversity. This was actually conducted by INDEMAR, our institute. We got together all the academics, the institutions, the universities, and the other research institutions, both the governmental and non-governmental, and we shared our ideas, and we published what we call the National Program for Marine Biodiversity, which was recently updated, and we have new program of research that will be focused in these 12 major areas of work. That's the timelines that we hope to get together and to accomplish in the next 10 years, roughly. And well, a list of these activities are devoted to the characterization of ecosystems, of species. We have put a special emphasis in the things related with threatened species, which is a major problem in our countries. We have decided, and Liz just gave you an idea, one of the largest effort in this moment is to find and point out what are the major ecosystems to be protected in order to have a special subsystem of marine protected areas, both national and regional, which will respond to the conservation of threatened species, threatened ecosystems, and actually the stability of major environmental services that are being provided by this ecosystem. If you look into the food security of very many of our also very poor population, coastal populations, are completely dependent on the quality of these environments. And life is being threatened, human life is being threatened if we don't conserve and establish very strict rules about the conservation of key ecosystems around our areas, around our coastal areas. So a huge emphasis is being placed into this. And the other activities within the plan in the development of information systems, we have gone a good design of this key element for the decision making, in establishing an information system, biodiversity information system, which is open to everybody. And we have developed some tools in which you can go to the web pages and make maps and get information one on top of other to have some good idea of what we have, which has been very useful for the Ministry of Environment in terms of the negotiation with the oil industry, in terms of the exploration permits that they are asking in this moment. There's a huge momentum of exploration on offshore around our country, and we are very concerned to this. And we have been giving this information to the Ministry of Environment in order to really make sharp boundaries on where to explore, where to dig out oil, and where not to do it. That's, I believe we've gained some good points into this in the recent months. And of course, other activities in monitoring and trying to see how the plan will be developing in the future. And let me stress out also what was said about the importance of traditional knowledge, which always was overlooked by what we call the hard science. There's a very important amount of information, historical, traditional information, that has to be incorporated into the knowledge, and this is one of the elements that we decided to include into the plan. And of course, another number of things that we believe will be very useful to the marine plan, marine biodiversity plan that we have been conducting. Some figures of what we have. We try to make inventories of our marine biodiversity. These are the numbers. I will not go. This presentation will be available for you, but it's only to show the importance and the numbers that we are dealing with in terms of research. And some of the results that we've got in the last surveys that we've had around our marine areas. And these are the figures of new species that are being identified by our research teams at the Institute. This is interesting. In just one survey that we had with the Colombian Caribbean continental shelf in the last 2 or 3 years, we reported 250 new species for our Colombian Caribbean continental waters, and we identified and published more than 20 new species, new reported species in these areas, and we were just covering 5 major phyla. We still have a lot of specimens to be analyzed and studied at our laboratories. So if anybody is interested, we can invite you to help us in this effort in Santa Marta. I know that you will enjoy, or your scientists will be enjoying that. And so that's why we established what we call the Marine Museum of Natural Marine History of Colombia, the MHNMC, which is in charge of making the analysis of all this information. Well, we have the typical, how is my time? 5 minutes left, I'm just finishing. And the traditional activities that the marine program does. We have the collection of specimens to very large campaigns at sea, the separation of material, cleaning, taking pictures, and more recently the aid of modern or 21st century tools like ATM or DNA analysis, etc. You can have some information if you follow that link about what we do. Well, some of the numbers that I was just giving you, I was telling you about one of our campaigns, but this is a resume of other, including other campaigns and some pictures of the new species that we've been publishing and presenting to the scientific community. And all the information, it's being placed in this, what we call the Marine Biodiversity Information System, SIBM, in which you can have via the web page of INVEMAR the information of each of the species. When we identify one of these species, we put it into a catalog card, electronic catalog card with all the characteristics of the specimen, photograph, DNA analysis, the record history, the geographical location, and it's linked with a geoportal in which you can actually put the information in maps and print them and take a check where they are located. And this is what it's being used actually by the Ministry of Environment to design the limits of other exploration or other industrial activities around our coasts. What are our future challenges? Well, we believe that we have to continue our work. We have to accomplish the agenda that was established in the marine biodiversity plan that we just published. Gather and organize all the information, which is not all at INVEMAR. We have a very important amount of information around the country, the universities, and abroad. We know that there are a number of institutions elsewhere that have important information that it's key to the very valuable data that we need in our country. We believe that interinstitutional work is the major role. For that, we have signed agreements with universities. We actually run at implement a marine doctorate program with other six Colombian and German institutions, and this is a very major effort we're conducting. I will make an ad here. Maria Claudia is part of that group of students in this moment. and I believe that it's going to be a major thing for our country in order to create the national capacity. And in this, we need also to make contacts and connections with other countries. So we can receive people in our program and we can send people to all the programs abroad. We need money. As you saw, to make marine research is very expensive. It's much more expensive than traditional research on land, so we need to get the money to make marine research. We need the tools to have the research done in a good way. Sorry. And we are trying to make, in terms of policy, the inclusion of marine biodiversity in key aspects of the laws in our country. We believe that we have to gain a space, a location, a niche in the production of environmental policies at the country. So we have major challenges. These are some pictures of the recent research we've been conducting for the ministry and the oil industry, trying to give them advice on what not to do. That's what we believe. They want to do a lot of things. We are always trying to stop them. And I will finally present our new location. So we're moving from Punta Retin, the rocky mountain that you saw at the beginning, to these new premises. Also in Santa Marta. They're being constructed in this moment. We believe we can be moving ourselves by the end of the year. And this will be the major layout of the main building, the laboratories. This is an environmentally friendly construction with all the features that an environmental construction must have in terms of use of energy, water, the making profit of the environment, the climate, the natural conditions of Santa Marta. We have a water managing system that will recycle all the water that is being produced by the building. These are the laboratories, and we don't have these basketball courts. Actually, that's the area where we hope to have our thematic park in the future, what we call the Marine Thematic Park of Colombia, which is supposed to be the point of meeting of the marine community, both Colombian and international. So that's our project. We have 3 hectares in order to be adopted by some interested party to work with us in the construction of this new thematic marine park in our country. So that's for all, and thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you, Captain Francisco Arias. Now, I would like to introduce our second expert, Mr. Andrew Snowhite, an Open Grounds Fellow at the University of Virginia, the CEO of USA Pavilion, and the co-founder of Azure Worldwide.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to talk for a few minutes, and I'm going to show a quick video, and then say a few words after that. As you mentioned, I'm here at Expo as the CEO of the USA Pavilion. We're the public, we have a public-private partnership in the US, so we're the private partner NGO firm that was chosen by the State Department to design, build, and operate our pavilion. And my partner in the pavilion, our chief spokesperson, is a gentleman named Philippe Cousteau Jr. He's the grandson of Jacques Cousteau. and he and I have a number of initiatives. And I want to talk about one specific project today and share it with you because we're really excited about it. And I think it's interesting and it's a little bit different. The USA Pavilion is a project of Philippe's nonprofit Oceans Education organization, which is based out of Washington, D.C., called Earth Echo International. And he and I also have a for-profit endeavor called Azure Worldwide, where we do environmental design, development, and marketing. So for us, it's really about the legacy of storytelling that he inherited from his grandfather and from his father as well. And we do that both through physical spaces such as the pavilion, but we also do it through digital space as well. So I wanted to talk today about one of our projects, which we do in partnership with the University of Virginia, and it is called the UVA Bay Game. It's a cutting-edge participatory watershed simulation tool. It really takes a large-scale ecosystem management approach to some very complex issues. The Chesapeake Bay watershed is on the east coast of the United States. It has about 18 million people within the watershed. Includes large areas of some very large states of Pennsylvania, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Virginia, and is the largest estuary in America. So it's a very important area, and it's also in a lot of trouble. It's very degraded. The bay itself is in really poor health. And this project is really interesting in that we've taken a different look on it and a different way to try to get different stakeholders engaged, and we're doing it through a video game. So I wanted to share that today just as an example of kind of thinking outside of the box. Before I talk anymore, I do want to say that I've been really impressed with the first two presentations. I think that Colombia has taken some really wonderful steps to protect and preserve and to restore the ocean, and we need more countries and more governments to be this forward thinking. So thank you to the embassy and to the pavilion team here, and of course to UOC for putting this on today. We appreciate it greatly. This is our passion in life, and it's always wonderful to meet other people who share that passion. So the quick overview of the game, and the video will explain it a little bit better, is an interdisciplinary team at the University of Virginia that covers a number of different schools within the university came together to try to come up with a solution to the bay's problems. And as you'll see, over the last few years we've created a game that allows the players to take the role of different stakeholders in the system, a fisherman, a land developer, a policymaker, and see how their decisions affect the health of the bay, both the environmental health and the financial health, over a 20-year period. What's really cool is that for the first 10 years of that period, we're using the real data. So it is a very, it's not a perfect model, but it's about as close as you're going to get. And we've done this with both in the classroom, at universities, at high schools. We've done this with policymakers in Virginia and Maryland and on Capitol Hill in DC. We've played this with corporations. It's a really interesting, different way to think about these big coastal environmental management issues. So let's play the video, and then I'll say just a few words afterwards.
Azure Worldwide is a creative development company, and we are partnering with the University of Virginia to engage people to take action in their communities and understand the importance of the environment.
UVA Bay Game is a one-of-a-kind educational life game that represents the interrelated behaviors of all the farmers, people who fish on the bay, crabbers, watermen, real estate developers, and government policymakers who make important decisions about water quality in the bay.
They can not just be game players, but game changers, where they're fundamentally engaging with other stakeholders in their role in skating and figuring out ways to make the system work for everybody.
In the game, it's constantly prompting you to learn from your mistakes. You can play it over and over and over until you understand what the concepts are.
But when you give them the opportunity to really engage in and take on a role, take ownership of that role, there's actually a lot of research that supports the idea that when people do this, they learn more, they learn better.
Well, this is really exciting because we get to sort of play this game, play this role, and see how our actions affect the health of the bay.
I am part of the James River team, and my role is to be a crop farmer. And all of us must work together to go towards the main health of the bay.
Everybody's got to come together. 100 people can't do it, but 100,000 can. You know.
Everybody has a role to play, so games like this can help people understand the possibility that something they do will actually improve conditions.
The other beauty of the Bay Game is it allows us to look forward. We don't have to wait 5, 10, 15, 20 years to see if the actions that we're taking are really having the desired impacts.
The reality is that these problems, because they are so broad, they do require an interdisciplinary team. We need people with all kinds of different expertises and perspectives to address these issues.
It involves currently about 51,000 differential equations. So it's a pretty substantial model that underlies the game interface.
It would have been impossible without bringing together all of the other kinds of expertise that different faculty bring, that the different students have brought, to make it a seamless whole.
Having worked with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation for now about 15 years on restoring the Chesapeake Bay, this is the first of its kind.
The Chesapeake Bay is the largest estuary in the country. 16.7 million people live around Chesapeake Bay, and many livelihoods are dependent upon a healthy bay.
Chesapeake Bay is a big place. There's a lot of water in there, and there's a lot of pollution.
Despite a lot of good work in the past year, the bay's health still remains pretty degraded and pretty poor condition. So what that tells us is that over the past 25 years, there's been a lot of good activity, but it's just not enough.
These kinds of video games, I think, are the future.
My hopes for the students that get to play this game are whatever role they're going to have. Some of them will end up being policymakers. All of them are going to be citizens. And all of them then will have an opportunity. They'll understand some of the complexities of the system and understand some of the implications of the choices that they make.
Without a healthy environment, we cannot have a healthy economy and a healthy society.
I think the UVA Bay Games should be looked at by all of the regulatory boards in the state, not just the Marine Resources Commission. I think they could all learn from it.
We should continue to support the development of games for learning, precisely because they provide people an opportunity to experience and make sense of this information in a real active and engaging way.
This game is tremendously powerful.
So not only can they play the Chesapeake Bay game, but with a little bit of tweaking, we got to be able to modify this game to be played in other watersheds in the U.S.
Nothing else exists out there. This is an incredible opportunity to help us all.
Unless everybody wins, nobody wins.
So that's just a little background on the game itself. Since we made this video, we've continued to develop, and we're now at the point where this fall we're going to be launching kind of our 2.0 version, where we're going to move away from just the Chesapeake Bay, and we have essentially created a new template so that this is a water simulation template that can be applied to other places around the world. So we're really excited about that. We're really excited about this idea of using gaming to encourage stakeholder engagement, and you know, we're always looking for people that share our passions and like to collaborate. So thank you for having me today, and hope that was an interesting little tidbit of one of the projects that we're working on.
Thank you very much for your comments. And I would like to add that we have had the opportunity to know Jacques Cousteau when he came to the Amazon, and he developed one of the most important projects on river dolphins. And after that, his grandson as well went to Malpelo, Fauna and Flora Sanctuary, and some of his videos supported the declaration of Malpelo as landmarks and UNESCO's worldwide heritage. So that's really important also for Colombian people. Thank you for your video. We have 5 minutes more left, so I don't know if you have any questions, and we can keep this moment to do that before going to coffee break.
Yeah.
Of course.
You could give us wonderful presentation, but one thing is lacking that you haven't shown us the budget that we will be getting from Colombian government, how much budget has been assigned to support all this, and what's the manpower to sustain all these activities? The manpower and budgetary support from Colombian government.
I can talk about INVEMA, but we need excellent to share the central government use of money. I will talk about INVEMA, which is my field, but I will leave Elizabeth to present the ideas on the national government compromises in this. But afterwards, I will talk about INVEMA.
As different from the productive sectors of the country, Colombia in the environmental sector have a budget, an estimate budget of 1.5 billion pesos, which it could be like nearly 1 billion US dollars. So it's not much budget if you compare to energy or agriculture sectors. They have a lot more money. And the regional autonomous corporations, they have a big chunk of that budget, of which you have like a very, very diverse array of, for example, the regional autonomous corporations that are located in the neighboring areas of the large cities of the country. For example, in the one that is located in the center part, where Bogota, which is the capital of the country, are located, they can have a budget of $200 million per year. And you can have, for example, budgets, very small budgets as Coralina, which is the one that have led this process in seafloor, that have a budget of $3 million per year. So we have like 15 of these 33 regional autonomous environmental authorities, 15 of which are have very limited resources, because the main resource for these environmental authorities comes from a percentage of the land tax. So the regional autonomous corporations that are in the biogeographic areas of the country, in which also in a lot of these places there are collective territories also for the indigenous groups, and they don't pay tax. So you have these large areas that are administered by some of these regional autonomous corporations, but they don't have much budget from land taxes. But then the other ones in the larger cities, they can have a good amount of budget. So there is a strategy that were developed by the country almost 10 years ago now. They created a national compensation fund. So the 15 regional autonomous corporations that have the largest budget, they contribute to this fund, and there is like a source of funding from this fund for the 15 that doesn't have much funds, but they have to submit projects to make sure that they can have some of that that money from that fund. So we have limited funds, but we have a lot of hardworking people that are trying at the different levels to pursue sustainability goals.
Thank you for the question. Regarding Ibadan, actually the country designed within the national environmental system a special kind of institutions for the research institutes. We are what are called non-profit, officially linked organizations that allow us to work as private entities. We have to follow the rules of the private sector for our contracting, for our administration, and that makes us very flexible in terms of our budgets. In this sense, our institute in Dubai has a budget of around $16 million for this year, out of which only 20% are coming from the central government. These are mainly used for the basic support of the institute. We have with these to pay major bills of energy, water consumption, some part of the basic staff. My salary comes from but actually the important amount of money is coming through different pathways. Mainly international cooperation. We have projects that we gained in the GF, the strategy of the UN nations. We have some agreements with different international bilateral and multilateral institutions. From governments, we've got support from the Dutch embassy, from the Spanish embassy, from the American embassy, at different points of time. And more recently, we developed a strategy of making studies with private entities. So in this moment, the other 80%, about 0.5% comes from international and national cooperation, and the other half comes from consulting. The Institute in this moment has, as I told maybe in our presentation, about 250 persons working at the Institute. This is an important number, but it's very small for the challenges that we have. We have, from the 5 institutions that give support to the Ministry of Environment, there's only one related or devoted to marine issues, and it's 50% of the country. So we have the other 4, the other 50% of the country. So we believe that we need some more budget. But we follow one thing that I always tell at the Institute. The problem is not the lack of money, but the lack of ideas. So we have good ideas, we get the money to do more things.
Thank you, Captain Francisco Armando. Well, that concludes the beginning half of our event. Thank you for your cooperation. It is break time now, so please feel free to get up from your seats and enjoy the beverages we have provided. We kindly ask you to be back in this room promptly at 11:15 so we could continue with our conferences. Thank you.